Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Tech Corner. I've got an awesome episode coming up your way here in just a moment with the awesome Javvad Malik from KnowBe4. We're going to be talking about what's it like to be a movie star? What's it like to be a star of a hit cybersecurity TV show? What are we going to do about awareness? And so much more. It's going to be a really, really fun show, and you don't want to miss it. But before you do that, please make sure to subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into the CyberHub podcast, thanks so much for tuning in. We are daily live at 9 a.m. Eastern with the latest practitioner cybersecurity news. We'll look at the risk, impact, and mitigation of all things around cybersecurity. And then if you have not subscribed to our CISO Talk podcast, please make sure to go and do so right now. It's a conversation between myself and one of my CISO peers from the industry as we talk about all things and everything from leadership all the way down to security and our job roles, and a little bit of fun towards the end as well. So without further ado, let me not bore you with any more details. Let's bring on Javvad and start this week's Tech Corner. Here we go, folks.
From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast Tech Corner. And now, join me in welcoming your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hey, movie star.
Intro riff, the guitar riff is so awesome. It's almost like one of those wrestling entrance musics.
It is. That's exactly what I wanted it to be for Tech Corner too, right? Like, and now from London, England. Like, it would have been awesome, man. Like, if I had a voiceover person that I could just call on in a minute and just have him do an intro for every guest, how awesome would that be?
That would be super awesome. Yeah, and like everyone needs a unique intro music. Like, I mean, I grew up watching wrestling. I was crazy about wrestling in the 80s and 90s. And, you could just hear the first few tones of someone's music and you saw the whole crowd go wild. And as a young me, I'd jump up on the sofa as well. And like, yeah.
Who was your favorite wrestler?
Oh, man, there were so many. I think all time, I'd say Bret Hart.
Yeah, Bret the Hitman Hart, baby.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels was also legendary.
He was. It's just his beef with him just like caused me to never fully embrace him.
Yeah, it's kind of like basketball players or sports, right? Like you go play for, I don't know, Manchester City, then you go to United. Like, no, people look at you and go, we don't know about you.
That's
we
it.
don't know about you. I'm glad you're wearing a tie for our show today.
I dressed up especially for you. I thought, it's really weird because when I used to go to an office and then it became more casual, so we stopped wearing a tie and like you still wear smart, but business casual kind of thing. Even at that point, my dad was like, this isn't how it used to be. Like, people are meant to go to the office looking all smart and what have you. And now he's really disgusted in me when I rock up in my shorts and barely ironed t-shirt, and I'm like, I'm off to work. So even he was pleasantly surprised. He saw me this morning, said, "Oh, do you have a job interview today?" I said, "No, even better. I'm speaking with James Azar."
And he's like, "Who?" He gets a tie.
Yeah.
It's so funny because my time, when traveling was a thing, I remember every time I'd go to England, right? Like, I could never wear a black t-shirt only to a meeting in England. People would think, like, I can't tell you how many times I'd walk into a meeting and people would be like, is Mr. Azar coming? And I'm like, that's me. And my black t-shirt. Thank you very much, lady. Appreciate it, right? Because everything in England, especially in England, man, in London, people wear spiffy suits with the vests. I mean, if you can pull off a vest, that is the ultimate kind of like James Bond British look, right? And if it's gray, oh my God, you've pulled it off. That's it. That is the look. That is the look that always comes to mind when someone says, how would you describe your idealistic, look-wise, like dress-wise, British candidate or British, business associate? And I'd be like, gray suit with a vest, brown shoes, possibly a hat, and definitely carrying an umbrella because you never know when it's going to rain.
Oh wow. Yeah. So Kingsman.
Yeah, pretty much a Kingsman. Yeah, you nailed it. But I said it before Kingsman came out. I just want
Yeah.
to.
Good
So
stuff.
you and I have a really fun show lined up for people tuning in today. I want to talk a little bit about the hybrid security culture, right? Kind of I feel like sometimes we're in this mode where we are the definition of insanity because we're doing the same thing over and over and over again and almost expecting for a different result. You know, you and I were talking about this kind of prepping for the episode. I'd love to kind of get your input on it.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, and when you look at some even old, someone shared on Twitter an old article from '83, and it was talking about hackers, and it was a lot of it was just the curious hackers that were breaking into systems just for curiosity's sake and what have you. And there was lots of stuff being discussed on it. And actually, when you've read the article, it read as if it could have been written this year. The same challenges. It's like, people not knowing what their assets are, or not knowing how to secure them, or not patching stuff, or choosing weak passwords. It was the same stuff. And we think, wow, we've been doing this for like 20, 30 years, and it's pretty much a lot of the same challenges exist. And so to your point, it is insanity. We're doing the same thing with the same tools in the same way, and then wondering why things aren't changing.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2021, and if we've learned anything about the human race in the last 18 months, is that we're super resilient. If I would have came to you 2 years ago and said, you're going to spend the next 18 months at home, working from home, you're not going to be allowed to socialize. And if you're allowed to socialize, you're going to have to do it with social distancing, and you can't hug or touch people, right? And you've got to wear a mask. You would have been and told me, you're mad. You're mad, and go, F yourself to a better terms, right? And then COVID showed up, and it really showed, one, our resiliency, but number two, our adaptability. And I'm not talking about the human perspective of it, but even from a company perspective, how many companies were quick to turn it on, quick to find solutions, move into a different, kind of reality and get the ball going.
Absolutely. And what was really surprising is there were so many companies that in the past, they shunned the idea of remote working. They wouldn't even let someone work 1 day a week from home, or whatever. No, if you're not in the office, you're not working. And all of a sudden, even those have adopted remote working. A lot of organizations, they ended up adopting cloud computing to a massive degree that they didn't before, because everything needed to be on-prem. They need to look after everything. If they couldn't see the light flashing, then it doesn't exist. But you're right. The adaptability was absolutely amazing, and it's a testament to how good these technologies are, and how the processes are there, but also how little it takes to overthrow the dictatorships.
Yeah. Well, and then now here we are. Let's, if we look at security as a whole, right? We look at, what's going on within the industry. So remote became a thing, and awareness for a little while, I don't want to say kind of sat on the sideline waiting for someone to call it to come, join the playing field. But that's literally what happened for a good part of 6 months, in the early onsets of the pandemic. Cyber awareness wasn't a thing because people were so concerned with everything else that awareness wasn't a part of it. How do you think that's impacted the progress that we were making in terms of awareness within organizations?
So I think it has, and you're absolutely right. When you have so many priorities, there's only so much change you can put into an organization, but also you can put onto people. So people were like stressed out. They were worried about the pandemic, what will happen if we get sick? Is my job going to be safe? All that kind of thing. So it's understandable that you pull back on certain things, and education, awareness, that kind of thing. It's understandable that you want to reduce it. You don't want to make it a mandatory monthly activity that you're still doing, and you're hammering people amongst all these things, trying to get them to know. So that's where I think organizations, they needed to do two things. One is like they needed to make sure that the systems are architected in the way to allow people to make the right choice in an easier manner. So, and a lot of that comes down to just having open communication channels and being transparent with what's happening, how they're happening, what's expected of them. And the second thing is to move away probably from more training-based material to more awareness-based material. And we can talk about that distinction in detail, but effectively it's to move away from kind of like your compliance-driven activities, which is like make sure everyone knows how to create a strong password, to something that's more engaging, something that's more that isn't necessarily mandatory, but just keep security in the back of mind of people. Because it's during this time that we saw the criminals, they all ended up working remotely, and they started targeting people who were working remotely a great deal. We saw it with all these CDC phishing emails going out, or stimulus checks fraud going out, people claiming to be from HR, here's your bonus, or here's a new policy, or I'm from IT, install this new VPN on your browser. All these kinds of things we saw skyrocket. So I think that the combination of those two things happening really created a big issue. And organizations that took their eye off the ball, they were impacted quite badly in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a missed opportunity for cyber criminals. Mm-hmm. Right? Our adversaries never miss an opportunity to get a foot in the door. And yet it was very interesting to me is, I do a lot of live sessions, and I love the community that listens to the show. And at some point I remember someone said, well, if people just understood that it doesn't work that way. And I go, why would they? Like, why do we want to change human behavior that is natural? Because we tell people culturally within our organizations, we're an open organization, we're a multicultural organization, we're all these different things. And so you end up in a place where threat actors are able to take advantage of the democracy of our workplace to do what they do. And I think that's the battle of wits, right? It's the battle of minds. It's the battle of the century. Is how can someone be outwit? And you talked a little bit about the difference between training and awareness, right? And to tell me a little bit more about that, because you're a star of a hit show called The Inside Man. People should definitely catch it. It's quite the program.
It is, and you don't even have to be a know before customer. So the season 1 is actually on Amazon Prime, and just to put it in context, I'm not the star of it. I just have a brief cameo. Blink and you'll miss me. But
I doubt it. I caught it.
Very good. So the difference between training and awareness is, I view it a bit like this. Say you go on YouTube, and there are some training videos on there, and there's some awareness videos on there. Let's say you want to, you're in the market for your dishwasher's filter's broken. So what you do a search for the actual dishwasher model number of yours. You say it's an FN-30ZP by so-and-so brand, and you'll get a video. It's probably 10 minutes long, poorly shot, badly lit, but it's a guy in his 50s in overalls, and he explains to you very slowly why this model is different from the previous one. You need to look for this kind of filter. It's the one with the blue edging on it. These are the 4 Phillips screws that you need to undo. This is how you take out the old filter. This is how you clean the pipe. This is how you put the new filter in. This is how you put it all back together. That's a training video. And that's extremely useful when you're trying to understand how to do one task or complete a particular function. And then there's an awareness video, which is, it doesn't go into that level of detail, but what it does is it makes you aware, hey, there are things called dishwashers, and there are different things that go wrong in it. And they might make it entertaining. There might be dishwashers exploding, or, they might put, Mentos and Coke into it and see what happens, or what have you. And then in part of it, they'll say, one of the things you need to look out for are the filters, and filters, you should change them every 6 to 12 months or something like that. And that's an example of an awareness video. You've raised the awareness about the functions and the features, but what you've done is you've entertained and engaged people during that process. And I think that's the biggest difference we have. You need both, but we've tended to focus a lot on the mandatory training aspect. Find these are the 17 different ways you can tell that this USB drive is unsafe for your machine. Yeah, versus, hey, there are loads of things you can plug into your machine, and here's a good example of how you can do it. And you show Tom Cruise running across the rooftop of a building, hanging onto a helicopter, and then plugging in a USB, and that causes the bad guy system to go down. It's just a very different way of engaging people.
Well, see, but that's the one aspect of it where James McQuiggan and I, your colleague, we had a debate a while ago, and it was security. Excuse me, it was security versus culture versus awareness. Sorry, it was culture versus awareness versus technology. Sorry,
okay,
let me get that straight. It was culture versus awareness versus technology. And I said, we've got the awareness stuff down pat. I think there's so many resources out today for security awareness that you would be blind to not see it. Meaning if you're a CISO or a CIO and you're in charge of awareness, there's no shortage of tools, free or paid, that help you raise awareness. The challenge lies within culture and technology. So you've either got a super strict security culture, which is very, very bad, because whenever you wind something up so tight, it explodes. This is just a rule of thumb. And then when it explodes, it gets all over the place and you're going to be Equifax. And then there's technology. And I think technology is our biggest miss. Mm-hmm. See, so many times we build technology to support the human, not complement the human.
Yeah.
Right? And we can do all the great awareness, and we can bring awareness down to a 90%, 95%. I think if I told you 95% of your people are cybersecurity aware and pass all the different trainings, you would be ecstatic. You'd jump off the roof. Right? You'd probably break dance, Javvad.
If I could, I would.
But and we have organizations that reach that level of awareness effectiveness, right? Where people see that, where they, don't fall for it. And even if they click, they're reported and they go, I think I clicked something that was phishing. Let me call the help desk and report it, right? And to me, that's the real number of awareness. That's how I know my awareness program is effective. As a CISO, I don't measure the number of people who click the link. I don't care, right? Because I don't know the circumstances by which one you got this email and why you clicked it. It could be, how many times have you opened an email or clicked something by mistake? You had no intention to, but your phone froze, your computer froze, you're clicking all over the place, and then all of a sudden, especially if you use a Windows machine, like that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Right? You click on something, you click on it, and it's a video of something else. Right? Like you clicked on the wrong link, not intentionally, not because you wanted to, but because your computer froze, you're in the middle of something really busy, and it just so happened. Now, does that happen every time? No. But to me, I don't care if you click the link. I care what you do after you click the link. Is your awareness to the point where you go, I click this and now it's taking me to a Google page or an Outlook page? That's not normal. You know what? I'm going to call help desk. That to me is the effectiveness of an awareness program. I may have done something. Let me bring it to someone's attention.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely.
But and that's supported by culture. But where we lack is on the idea of technology. The idea of technology is that all of our technology today complements the human being, doesn't support its weakness. So that's like having a crane, right? That's like having construction without a crane. If you had construction without a crane, you couldn't lift heavy stuff high, right? So people would be manually doing it. And we have cranes today to help support build stuff high, but we don't have technology that serves as the crane to help you reach that additional level. It doesn't exist, right? there's some attempts by some, Microsoft is trying to complement the human somewhat, but beyond that, you don't see that complement so much there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm off my soapbox. I get on one of these like long tangents.
No, it's fine, and I think you're right. When it comes to a lot of the technology, it's built in a vacuum of very idealistic thinking, and that causes a lot of issues.
Right.
And I think one of the fundamental problems is that a lot of technology is built with the principles in mind that everything needs to be faster, everything needs to be frictionless, everything needs to be supercharged. And while that's probably true in the majority of cases, it's not true in every case. And I think when you try to build everything like that, you actually compound mistakes to work a lot faster as well. And I think this is where the lack of having any psychologists or behavioral scientists on a team when you're developing things really shows. One of my big bugbears is instant messaging or even emails. The fact that they're instant and how many times have people ended? I mean, I'm terrible at this. I'm in the middle of work and then someone pings me something on Slack or WhatsApp or something like that, and then oh great, and then you feel almost like obligated to respond to it there and then. And then you end up with a back and forth. And the same thing happens on email. You're trying to get through your inbox. You're trying to get to that sludge at the bottom of your inbox. So you're going through these top ones, and before you're even halfway through, people are responding to that. It's like bugger off. I mean, I would be happy if there was a delay put in my email by default. So an email only goes out, 10 minutes after I hit send. I think that would solve a lot of problems. But maybe that's just me.
I agree with you. There's what you're talking about, though, is kind of like the personal management aspect of it, right? And there are some times where, if you're a sales guy, so you and I, we don't come from sales, but if I'm a sales guy and you respond to me right away, I want to respond to you right away because you're hot. That's it. The prospect is engaging with me. So I want to engage back right away. I don't want to wait. I don't want to let, something that I can get done today, tomorrow, done in a week or two, because you don't know how people's schedules or priorities change, right? You don't have an insight to it. You and I, we think from a security perspective. And that security perspective, I think, is our downfall, right? I think that's where we miss the most, because we sometimes fail to account for the human element and the unpredictable nature of human beings at different times.
Absolutely. And I think that the big problem is that we try to measure everything in a scientific method. There are things that are easy to measure, easy to count, and that's what technologists and a lot of security people tend to focus on. I was reading this study about pharmaceutical companies, and they try to make drugs that are as easy as possible for people to take. So, make the pills as small as possible so they're easier to swallow. Have to take them as infrequently as possible. Who wants to take something 3 times a day when you can have a slow release pill that you only need to take once a day, and what have you? However, when they do tests on a lot of medication, there was one, I can't remember. It was some sort of I can't remember what the pill was for, but they done the test and they said it's 80% effective. The chemicals in the product are 80% effective, which is great. But they also done a placebo study, and they said the placebo was 40% effective. And this is a really interesting thing. The placebo effect is really, really interesting, and there's so many books written about it. But pharmaceutical companies, much like technologists, they will throw out that 40% and only focus narrowly on the 80% because that is something that's true, it's something that's real, it's something that's measurable. But you could argue that the objective is to make people feel better. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you're making them feel better through chemicals or just through kind words or the feeling that you're supporting them. If they feel better, then you've achieved your job. And this is, again, something I think it mirrors. Ideally, it mirrors almost perfectly in the technology world. We focus a lot on making things measurable or countable, or like, how do we reduce the number of clicks, or how do we increase this or that? Whereas sometimes it's just about how do we make people feel, and this is, to your point, I think it ties into the culture. Culture is not something that you can necessarily measure in really specific ways. It's not like you can compare two organizations, say, well, that culture versus that culture that's 0.73% better than that culture. It's not. A lot of it is a unmeasurable or unscientific method, and we really need to focus on that. And when I say we, I mean the industry. They need to bring in people who better understand this and better build it, because I don't think technologists are in the right place to build that. At least not history's not shown it to be.
Yeah, I mean, so you bring, I think, a very, very interesting point, which is there's no scientific measurement to culture. Yet culture is the key derivative and the key result of an effective awareness program with relationship building within an organization and top-down leadership of priorities, right? So, when you look at Know Before, Stu is really the leader, and Stu kind of dictates top-down the pace. And that's why a lot of people who you meet at Know Before are awesome people, because the leadership reflects that, right? Like there's an aspect to it. And we see in some challenges, and, it's interesting because as a CISO, you interview a lot of people. And when you're interviewing people, I like to gain some intel. So I'm not putting anything weird out here, right? It's not a trade secret that you ask people, like, tell me about the security culture at your previous company. Tell me about the efforts you've made to, make inroads with, different teams or departments that, may have looked at security as being a hindrance. What'd you guys do? What was what was your role in it, et cetera, all that good stuff. And oftentimes that's the question that tackles everyone. And I can tell when someone's making something up, because they go down a list of very generic talking points, right? So it'll be like, we did a lot of awareness and we spoke to them a lot. And I'm like, okay, now your voice is getting scratchy, buddy. Yeah. That's not it. That's not what I'm looking for. Whereas you can tell with someone who's actually been in an organization with an effective security culture, because they'll typically start in saying, well, our executive leadership team talked about the need for everyone to be responsible for security. We do monthly stand-ups with different teams. We've been given a very generous, budget for awareness and internal company activities. Like, one of the things I love to do about kind of like building a security culture is VR glasses. So back when things were in person, we had 3 VR glasses that were in the break room, and people would come in and put them on, and they had different awareness training, cyber awareness trainings, and all of them were customized to our office. So you'd put them on and you're walking in the office, and, we took legendary characters from our office, people who, everyone knows, right? Because, there's the loud guy, which sometimes could be argued was me. There was the funny guy, which definitely was not me. There's the very, nice chatty person who, you're in a hurry and she's like, so how are things going? Are you okay? And all these different things that go on. So we really kind of customized it, and it really engaged people with security. They enjoyed it, right? When it was their office. So it wasn't some, made up thing. Yeah. And they're seeing their office in 3D, which was magnificent, by the way. And the whole process of producing that, like, I'm going to ask you about Inside Man here in just a minute, right? But the whole concept of just producing that was a lot of fun to see the camera crew come in and start to record different parts of the office, and then how that translates into, VR. I remember the first time I put it on, I was like, man, I feel like I'm in the office, right? Especially if you go fully submerged, like if you immerse yourself in it, you put on the headphones, you're really just, sound wise. But for us, I'll tell you something very interesting, Javvad, for it broke so much of, I don't want to say the resistance, but it broke so much of the security as a threat. Because a lot of the trainings wasn't about, should I pick up this USB port and plug it in the computer? Some of it was, who's this guy walking around the office that no one knows? And so,
I think what it is that when you ask someone to engage in anything, in any activity, a training activity, watching this podcast, listening to it, or what have you, there's an unwritten contract there, isn't there? You're saying, give me 5 minutes of your time and an hour of your time, and in return, I'm going to give you something. And unspokenly, there should be something for there. There should be some engagement. There should be some entertainment. There should be a feeling of accomplishment or betterment. And if you're not doing that, if you end up walking away from it thinking, well, I didn't get anything other than like being drilled by an exam, being told and being made to feel stupid, then that's where the resistance really comes up. And doing something like that, like having a VR activity, which is engaging, it's fun, people feel like they've enjoyed it, it's something they feel like it's been a treat for them, then that absolutely will break down those barriers.
See, we made modules. So we never loaded. The VR didn't have just one set of trainings. Mm-hmm. We always did different modules, and not all modules were business related. Some of them were very much personal life related. Like, you're bring your kids to work day, right? One of our favorite days of the year, right? If you like kids, if that is your thing, right? You bring your kids to work. Well, then kids bring a whole new level of security threat that day to the office, right? Mm-hmm. You ever seen a bunch of kids walking around the office? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially because the workplace somehow thinks that giving them like donuts and sugar and hyping them up on more sugar seems to be an effective method to keep the workplace productive for the day. No, those kids are bouncing off the walls in the meeting room. There's spaghetti on the ceiling and no one brought spaghetti. Slime everywhere. But
that's exactly it.
Right. But it's doing different modules. It's making it so that it's more, you've got to have something personally vested beyond your company in security, right? And it's got to be about that person. So if I come to you, Javvad, and Javad's got 3 kids, and I go, hey, Javvad, here's a PDF about how to keep your kids secure online. Here's an app that the company pays for, right, that we've bought licenses for, that you can install on your kid's phone, and the help desk has an hour a week where they take your questions on how to set it up and all that good stuff. Like, now the employee's more vested. Like you said, there's that that commerce that's being done without really commerce being done, right? Yeah. There's that quiet trade. Talk a little bit about the Inside Man. You've made a few cameos on there. You're quite the personality. So tell us a little bit about that. I know there's a new season coming up, right?
Yes, there is. There's a whole. I can't say much about that. I'm under NDA, but. So we bought a company called Twist and Shout, and they've been making these security awareness videos for a while. They had a whole series called Restricted Intelligence, which was based. It's almost like an office sitcom, so it's like a comedy series, and that done immensely well. And so KnowBe4 commissioned them to make the Inside Man, the first season. And they loved it so much. I think that was one of the, well, I don't know whether that was one of the drivers, but they ended up buying Twist and Shout and commissioned them for a whole bunch of series seasons for the Inside Man, which is more, it's got some elements of comedy, but it's more of a drama. it's something that you would see it something like that on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Actually, if you do a search for The Inside Man on Amazon Prime, you will find it all. There's a whole first season there, and you can watch it all in one go. And the idea is like you make something that's like it's familiar to people. So people are very used to the concept of sitting down and watching something on TV on a streaming service. And there are characters there. There's a story there. There's like a main overarching story that extends throughout the entire season. Then each episode has a mini plot within it, just like how you see on a TV show.
Right.
And then there's mini payoffs in each episode, which is your actual learning from that each thing. And then there's the big payoff, which is your overall story arc. And then you reflect on where the character started from, where they ended up going, what was their journey like in between. And like you said, in the VR, you have like all these different characters from the office. You have these different characters or different scenarios that people that work in an office or in a corporation, they can relate to, so that everyone can relate to someone walking in and saying, I left my pass, can you please let me in? It's just upstairs at my desk. And it's happened to most people at some point or another. There's people that have there's been an outage or there's an incident, and how do you respond to it, and all these kinds of things. So the team that's responsible for it at Twist and Shout, like Jim Shields, he's like the manager. He's like an awesome person. He's been working in sort of like the movie business for his entire career. They really put a ton of effort into it. So seeing behind the scenes what they go through, they have a proper casting days where they spend they go through hundreds of people to find the right person for the particular role that they're going for. They have like scripts that go through like 50 different revisions. They're so meticulous in their details, not just about is the dialogue true to the character, is the technologies correct or realistic, and are the learning points actually subtle enough but observable enough by the viewers. It gave me a whole appreciation as to the level of detail they go into, and that's the difference that you see between something that's some guy in their room on YouTube makes versus something that's put together by a professional production company, because the difference is day and night. But it's been an absolute amazing thing to witness and be part of, in a small part, because I think anyone that watches it, they recognize.
Cameos? Do you have any cameos in the new season?
You know what? It's not as yet, but possibly.
So what's it take to get a cameo in the new season?
I have no idea. I'm still trying to work that out. I've been trying to bribe the cast and crew with donuts and compliments and everything I can think of. I think it comes down.
Walk into the middle of a shop, like like we take. Just walk in. And be like, anyone want any donuts?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like when they really don't have anyone at all, or they've used up all their budget and they want someone to do a freebie for 5 seconds, they'll call me. Other than that, I don't think I can get it on merit.
I don't know. Your cameos are pretty good, man. You've done some awesome work culturally, which is within cyber. Some of the YouTube videos you've done and so forth. They should have you on in every episode, right?
Oh.
Like you should be an ongoing character and not just a cameo.
That's what I keep telling them. I keep telling them, like, well, at the very least, they should make me cameo everywhere. So I'm like kind of like the Stan Lee of the Know Before cinematic universe, where
you should do just that. Or they should at least make you like the voiceover, the storyteller of the whole thing.
There is that.
Tuesday morning in London, England, when
yes. Yeah, I'm sending my show reel to Disney Plus, hoping they seem to do like spin-off series of side characters these days.
Well, that's because it appears that creativity has gone away, except with the Inside Man, where at least there's still some resemblance of great cinema, at least a little bit. So thank you for the inside look at that, Javvad. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. And I know you're really busy, and we started a little bit behind schedule to record this, but I'm grateful we had a bit of technical difficulties here. So I'm always happy when I don't have to postpone and you are flexible.
Yeah, no worries. It's always a pleasure, and anytime. Always enjoy our chats.
Me too. Javvad, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Well, you can contact my agent, and they will filter out all the.
Is your agent Ari Gold? Because it'd be classic if your agent was Ari Gold. Like every time I see Jeremy Piffin, I'm like, please be Ari Gold. Please be Ari Gold. Please be Ari Gold.
No, you can just reach me. I have my own website, javadmalik.com, has all my social media details on there as well. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter as J4VV4D. You can find me in all the wonderful places. I think if you just do a search for me, you'll either you first get like about 50 hits of that guy that used to sing for One Direction, and then after that there's only me. So.
Are you sure that wasn't you?
I'm absolutely positive. He's about 30 years younger than me. Although one time I did do an interview with a magazine, and they didn't ask me for a headshot, and I think they were running up, so they'd done a quick search and they pulled up a headshot of me, and it was his picture. Javvad Malik, security awareness advocate for Nobify, and I'm like, yeah, well, I unfortunately I'm not that young or good looking.
That's awesome. Brilliant. Folks, Javvad Malik, go make sure you follow him and check out the Jarek show as well when you get a chance. Whenever I get, a half hour or 45 minutes, I try to catch you and Eric going through your shenanigans, which is absolutely brilliant. Javvad Malik, folks, thank you everyone for watching this week's Tech Corner. We'll be back next week with a lot more. Until then, stay cyber safe. Cheers, folks.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. And get all the latest information at cyberhubpodcast.com.